So we begin our session today with Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa
Namo tassa
Bhagavato
bhagavato
Arahato
arahato
Samma
samma
Sambuddhassa.
sambuddhassa.
Namo
Namo tassa
Tassa Bhagavato
bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
So as we are studying this book 3, and last week we have finished what is called the part 3 of the book 3, and the part 3 of the book 3 was about the way Baba Sahib Ambedkar classified the teachings of the Buddha as Dhamma, Adhamma and Sadhamma. So he gave 3 levels of classification in order to understand the Buddha's teachings. And in the last few classes, we have seen what is Dhamma, and Baba Sahib Ambedkar has given various ways by which the Dhamma of the Buddha can be understood, can be practiced, can be defined. And today we are going to enter into part 4
Welcome.
of the book
Mangesh Daiwale's lecture is there.
book
Mayur,
of the book
come and listen.
of the book 3, and this part 4 is about what is not Dhamma, and then the part 5 will be about what is Sadhamma. So in a way, now we are standing at the level of our study where we are going to understand what Baba Sahib Ambedkar has defined as not Dhamma. And I think this is very important for all of us who are Buddhists to understand what is Dhamma, what is not Dhamma, and what is Sadhamma. And I think this way of classifying the teaching, which goes according to the classification done by the Buddha himself, as Baba Sahib Ambedkar has brought it here in the Buddha and Is Dhamma, is very innovative way of learning the Dhamma. So what is not Dhamma? What is definitely not Dhamma is very important for us to understand what is Dhamma as well and what is Sadhamma. So the part 5 of part 4 of the book 3 of the Buddha and Is Dhamma talks about 8 sort of topics which accordingly are not the Dhamma. So the chapter 1 is about belief in the supernatural is not Dhamma. So whatever there is supernatural in the world, whatever goes in terms of the magic, according to Buddha, is not the Dhamma. Then when we come to another sort of chapter number 2, belief in Ishvara, God, is not essentially part of Dhamma. And chapter 3, the Dhamma based on union with Brahma is a false Dhamma. It's not even not Dhamma, it's a false Dhamma, it's a wrong Dhamma. Belief in soul is not Dhamma. Belief in sacrifices is not Dhamma. Belief based on speculation is not Dhamma. Reading books of Dhamma is not Dhamma. Belief in the infallibility of books of Dhamma is not Dhamma. So the last 7 and 8 chapters we can take it as the statement for any book, whether they are the religious books or whatever books. So today we will begin with the first chapter, which is titled by Baba Sahib Ambedkar as Belief in the Supernatural is not Dhamma. So the verse number goes like this, that any phenomena occurs, whenever there is any phenomena occurring in the world, we as a human being would like to know how it has happened and what is the cause of it. So that's a curiosity of our mind, that we would like to know if anything happens in the world, how it has happened and what is the cause of it. And according to Baba Sahib Ambedkar, and as he has put it in the Buddha and Is Dhamma, sometimes the cause and effect are so near, so proximate, that it's not difficult to account for the occurrence of the event. So there are many events in the world that we can immediately find the cause. For example, if it is raining, we know that because there are clouds, it's raining. Depending on the climatic conditions, it rains. But oftentimes, the effect is so far from the cause, for the effect is not accountable. For there are certain events whose cause we cannot find, because the distance between the cause and effect is too much long. We cannot find the cause of it. And the verse number goes like this. Then the question arises, how has this event occurred? Because we don't find the cause of it, or we don't see the cause of it. The natural question arises in our minds as to what led this event to have happened. And the common answer, according to the Buddha, is that the occurrence of the event is due to some supernatural cause, which is often called a miracle. So, for example, if you look at the human history, there were many things whose causes were not known, and they were called a supernatural. We can cite many examples of that. And they were termed as the gods. For example, the rain. People couldn't understand why it rains. People couldn't understand why there are seasons. People couldn't understand, the humanity at certain point of time in its history couldn't understand various phenomena that now we have explanations for, that we know the definite causes of those phenomena or those events. And there are a lot of things in the world whose causes we don't yet understand, but maybe in the future we might. So, whenever the causes couldn't be understood, the humanity in the history called him a miracle. Okay, so that's the simple definition of what is a miracle. And the Buddha's predecessors gave very different answers to this question. For example, Pakaud Katyan. We have seen all these philosophers at the time of the Buddha when we had studied the Buddha and His Dhamma in the past. So here, Pakud Katyan denied that there was a cause for every event. There was one philosopher who said that no, there is no cause for the event. That is what one of the philosophers has said. Events, he said, occurred independently, and there are some events which occur independently. You know, they don't happen in terms of the cause and effect. They happen independently. So that was the stand of Pakaud Katyan. He denied that there was a cause for every event. Events, he said, occurred independently. And eighth, the Makkali Gosal, he was also one of the minor philosophers of that time, admitted that an event must have a cause. He admitted that every event must have a cause, but he preached that the cause is not to be found in human agency. He said that whatever happens in the world, it is independent of the human beings, but is to be sought in the nature, necessity, inherent laws of things, predestination, or the like. So he attributed the cause of the events happening in the world to nature, necessity, inherent laws of things, predestination, or the like. And in the verse number 9, the Buddha repelled these doctrines. He maintained that not only every event has a cause, but the cause is the result of some human action or natural law. So whatever is happening in the world has two causes, result of some human action or natural laws. So as we have seen in the previous sections, the Buddha has talked about the laws. He has talked about the niyams, like the Ritu niyam, means the niyam of the seasons. Buddha has talked about the bija niyam, the niyams in terms of the organic growth of anything like plants or animals. That is bija niyam. Then Buddha has talked about what is called the kamma niyam, as to how the kamma creates the moral order in the world. The Buddha has talked about chitta niyam, as to how there are the laws of minds. And Buddha has talked about the dhamma niyam. And Baba Sahib Ambedkar has gone into depth of it, all these niyams in his writings. So here, when we are talking about of having phenomena having causes, according to Buddha, there are, the cause is the result of some human action or natural law. So nothing is miraculous in the world. There is nothing supernatural in the world. Even the consciousness, which was considered to be mysterious and supernatural, was found to be very natural sort of the phenomena. The human mind itself is a natural phenomena. There is nothing mysterious about it, and it's expressible now. We can understand what is the nature of consciousness, even maybe in the future how it comes into being. So his contention against the doctrine of time, nature, necessity, etc., being the cause of the occurrence of an event was this. So if only the time, nature, and necessity, etc., being the cause of occurrence of an event was true, then the Buddha had certain objections, and we are going to look at certain objections of the Buddha. If time, nature, necessity, etc., be the sole cause of the occurrence of an event, then who are we? If everything happens by chance, if everything is predetermined, if everything is pre-calculated, if everything is destined to happen according to time, nature, and necessity, which if a few philosophers consider them to be the sole sort of causes, then the Buddha raised the question, is man merely a puppet in the hands of time, nature, chance, gods, fate, and necessity? So if everything is happening without, as a human agency, as a cause, then the pertinent question that has been raised here is, are we just a puppet in the hands of time, nature, chance, God, fate, necessity? What is the use of man's existence if he is not free? So if everything is happening by chance, if everything is happening according to nature, if everything is happening according to time, then who we are? Do we have a free agency? Are we free? Or are we controlled by all these forces around us? What is the use of man's intelligence if he continues to believe in supernatural causes? That's a very important question. Then if everything is supernatural, it's beyond the interference of human beings, then we are just mere puppets. If man is free, then every event must be the result of man's action or of an act of nature. So if we are free to act, and we have seen the result of the human action in the world, like the whole cities that we have developed, the whole technologies that we have developed, to the extent that we are also trying to change the nature. We are also trying to, play with, trick with the laws of nature, and we with some consequences, of course. So the verse number 14 goes like this: if man is free, then every event must be the result of man's action or of an act of nature. There cannot be any event which is supernatural in its origin. It may be that man is not able to discover the real cause of the occurrence of an event, but if he has intelligence, he is bound one day to discover it. Now, there were, as I was saying in the beginning, that there are a lot of things that were not understood by the humanity before. But now, through the intelligence of human beings, we are able to discern, we are able to know many things whose causes and conditions were unknown before the humanity. But today, we know so much about how the human beings have evolved. We know so much about how our bodies operate. We know so much about genetics. We know so much about the natural world. In the past, the humanity only believed that the earth is the center of everything, but today that view is no longer valid, because now we know a lot of things. We know about galaxies, we know about black holes, and we know about a lot of properties of the universe. We know about many particles which couldn't be known before, and we know about what happens at the quantum level, what happens at very micro level, to what really happens at a very macro level. We know at the microscopic level, we know at the telescopic level. That's the range of the knowledge that the humanity has acquired through the intelligence. So the verse number 15 is very optimistic. If it may be that man is not able to discover the real cause of the occurrence of an event, but if he has intelligence, he is bound one day to discover it. And why Buddha denied or repudiated the supernaturalism? Why Buddha was against supernaturalism? Because of the three objects that the Buddha pursued. And what are those three objects? They are so important for us to understand what are the three objects for which the Buddha has repudiated supernaturalism. The first object was to lead man to the path of rationalism. I think that's a very important and key point, that the Buddha wanted human beings to be rational. To what is the meaning of rational? Rational word comes from ratio, to judge, to compare, to know. And the rationalism is a path to the cultivation of intelligence. Without rationalism, there cannot be intelligence. Without intelligence, there cannot be knowledge about the natural laws, even the knowledge about our own selves. So that's why Buddha denied that there is, supernatural events, supernatural phenomena. His first object was to lead man to the path of rationalism. And we can talk a lot about rationalism, what it means. We do not believe anything because it's coming from the tradition. We do not believe anything because it's somebody who is, famous is saying that. We do not believe anything because it's written in the religion, because we try to know it. So the test of rationality, as the Buddha says, just like the goldsmith will verify certain metals to know whether they are gold, to ascertain the quality of gold in them, the goldsmith will conduct rigorous tests. Just like that, for every single idea, for every single incident, for every single phenomena in the world, we have to launch a rigorous inquiry into it. And that is what is the first object of the Buddha was. That was the objective of the Buddha while he repudiated supernaturalism, is to lead the man on the path of rationalism. And elsewhere, Baba Sahib Ambedkar has talked about Buddha as Buddha being the rational being. He was somebody who will think rationally. He was not somebody who will encourage supernaturalism. He was not somebody who will encourage superstitions. He will be somebody who would ask, who would lead humanity to rationalism. And that's what we have seen. What happened after the Buddha in India? India became so prosperous and rich at the time of Ashoka. And subsequently, we see that there was a explosion in arts, explosion in creativity, the philosophical thinking that we see the Buddha you shared in the world in terms of the great philosopher that came after the Buddha, like Vasubandhu, Asanga, Nagarjuna, Dignag, and so many of them. So we can see that the Buddha's goal was to lead the humanity to the path of rationalism. And I think that's a very, very interesting point that we need to bear in mind and understand. The second object of the Buddha, when he repudiated supernaturalism, was to free man to go in the search of truth. Because if we think that the world or the phenomena cannot be explained, the causes cannot be found, then we are not free to go for in search of the truth. And the Buddha encouraged the humanity to go for the search of the truth. All of us need to go for the search of the truth. In a way, the Buddhists have to be the truth seekers. We have to try to find out the truth of everything. And as Baba Ambedkar talks about in the Annihilation of Caste, he says, know the truth as truth and untruth as untruth. So mere knowing truth as truth is not enough. It's also important for us, for the human beings, to know untruth as untruth. And this is where I think the second object of the Buddha is so important, where the Buddha says the second object was to free man to go in search of truth. That's why the Buddha repudiated supernaturalism. And the third object was to remove the most potent source of superstition. The most potent source of superstition. What is it? To kill the spirit of inquiry. So Buddha encouraged to cultivate the spirit of inquiry into any domain of knowledge, into our own experiences, into the world. This is called the law of karma or causation. And we have seen the law of karma and causation in the previous lecture, which Baba Ambedkar explained so clearly as to what is the karma. And in the verse number 21, Baba Ambedkar reiterates this doctrine of karma and causation is the most central doctrine in Buddhism. It preaches rationalism, and Buddhism is nothing if not rationalism. That is why worship of the supernatural is not Dhamma. So why Baba Ambedkar has to bring in the law of karma in the discussion about supernaturalism? Because we know that there is a belief system according to which certain things happen to man because of their, karma, which cannot be explained. People are born poor, people are born into certain caste, people are born into certain religions because of the karma. But that is not how the Buddha explained it. That's not how the Buddha explained it. Buddha explained the karma in terms of how to make this world into a better place, in terms of creating a positive moral order. So the moral order of the universe can be bad or good. It doesn't depend on any supernatural agency. It doesn't depend on the God. There is no higher agency which places us in certain social locations. Or there is no external agency or supernatural agency that makes us feel certain ways. There is no external agency that creates wars among the human beings. It's all created by the human beings. The wars, the poverty, the exploitation, and all this social suffering that we see in the world is not created by any God, or it's not created by any random phenomena, but they are created by the man's action in the world. So the world, the society, the community, the economics or politics is good or bad depends on the way human beings act to create either a positive moral order or a negative moral order. And that's why Baba Ambedkar linking rationalism with the law of karma or the law of karma and causation is very, very interesting. And I would say a very clear statement on a very confused sort of teaching of karma or karma. So here we have seen what is not Dhamma. In the first chapter itself of what is not Dhamma, in the part 4 of the book 3 of the Buddha and His Dhamma, Baba Ambedkar makes this very succinctly clear as to what is not Dhamma. And the first thing which is definitely not the Dhamma is belief in the supernatural is not Dhamma. So, why the Buddha has repudiated the supernaturalism is because of the three things that the Buddha wanted the humanity to take into consideration. The first is that the Buddha always wanted to lead human beings on the path of rationalism, of rational thinking, of able to judge, of able to think, the path of knowing, the path of understanding. We can say the path of science itself. And that's why Baba Ambedkar says that the Buddhism is not in contradiction with science. The science is a similar path of rationalism. Then the second object that the Buddha had was to free man to go in search of truth. We all need to go in search of truth. We need to find out the truth. And the third object, and very important object, is not to kill the spirit of inquiry. Now, this spirit of inquiry, if it is absent in the community, in the society, what happens? If we just believe in whatever is handed down to us by religion or custom or by any dogmatic people, If we don't inquire, if we do not have the spirit of inquiry, then what happens? So much of the suffering comes into being. And finally, Baba Ambedkar has linked the supernaturalism. Why Buddha repudiated supernaturalism? Because he wanted to bring in the clear exposition of the law of karma, and we have seen the law of karma in the previous section as to how the karma produces the positive or moral social order, and the positive or moral social order are responsible for the happiness and the well-being of the community and the individual. That's what we have seen in the previous section. So I think this particular chapter that we have looked at today is very interesting from the perspective, because there are a lot of supernaturalism going on. People believe that things are happening in the world because of the time. People believe that certain things happen in the world because of God. Sometimes there is a natural calamity, people attribute it to the collective karma of the humanity, which is completely absurd, because there are, like, for example, earthquakes, they have the natural causes. If there are floods, there are natural causes. Sometimes those causes are man-made, because excessive sort of the tricking the climate has led to the heat waves across, and so on and so forth. So, we see how Baba Ambedkar has gone into depth of it, and he has tried to put very clear exposition as to why the Buddha repudiated the supernaturalism, and why, as a Buddhist, we have to, not only Buddhist, but everybody has to cultivate rationalism. That's very important for the human being. Second, we have to be free to uh, seek the truth. And the third, we have to cultivate the spirit of inquiry. If we kill the spirit of inquiry, then the humanity is doomed to suffering. The humanity is doomed for a disaster. I think that's a very, very clear exposition here. And I would stop here, and we would try to reflect on what has been said or written by Baba Ambedkar here. Anybody would like to comment, say anything on this?
Sir, I have, I don't know, I have a lot of queries.
Yes.
I will share. Means in the past, as we are reading our books.
Can you repeat?
Yeah, I have seen that whatever we have reading the philosophies, and each and every philosophy and theory of that time is centric to belief and custom and faith, and to maintain moral orders. I just in my mind came a thought, what was the role of gravity during that period? Means people how they related the laws that we are right now taking account into. The scientific temperament has gradually attained a stage, means a better stage right now.
Yes.
Or it was we can say that in the past it has of the same stature.
No, I think there is a definite change in the understanding of human beings from the past to the present generations, and there are a lot of books now which explains as to how this understanding has led to the creation of more equal society, more prosperous society than ever before. So that we can attribute to the spirit of rationalism or free inquiry that some of the human beings have undertaken. For example, without rationalism, I don't think the world would be where it is today. You see, so that time the human intelligence was not, it was developing, of course. The human intelligence was never frozen, and we know that there were people who have been thinking through, particularly when we talk about the Buddhist history of intelligence. We have seen that one statement of Buddha was developed into a total complete philosophical school. Likewise, in the past, when we study the history of religions, we find that the human beings were so confused that whatever there was, like, for example, there were rain gods, There were, animals were treated like gods. It's called the animalistic sort of belief system, where everything which a human being could understand was attributed as a supernatural agency, like fire was worshipped, and so on and so forth. You see, and from there to the understanding of fire as plasma today, from the primitive worship of fire to today's understanding of fire in terms of the fourth element, plasma, is a remarkable sort of a breakthrough in the thinking of the human beings. The quality that we human beings have, and has been explained very nicely by the modern thinkers in terms of the ability to reflect on itself, ability to think in terms of the abstraction, ability to really connect the things which are not been connected just by the senses, but through the process of intelligence. I think there were a lot of breakthroughs in thinking also. And I would say rationalism itself was a breakthrough in the human thinking, and the freedom to inquire, because in the past people were not free to inquire. They just accepted whatever was happening to them. If they had disease, they just accepted it as a fate, not knowing that there might be virus and bacteria which might be causing them, or some disease which can be cured now. You see, a lot of human beings have perished for the lack of medicines. Life expectancy was so less in the past, but now because of the advances of the medicines, I think a lot of diseases are curable. I think we have doctors. So your point is right. There is a remarkable sort of shift in the way people thought in the past and the way people thinking today. And of course, with its own challenges, like today's world is so complicated. Look at the internet and all those things. It leads to ultimately the fragmentary nature of our consciousness. It pulls us in all different directions. Never it has happened in the human history that human beings and their consciousness pulled apart by so many of the social media platforms. So I think we have to look at it as a gradual sort of a development towards more knowledge, towards more understanding, and yet there is still a lot to know. I would think that there will be always something to know.
After the Buddha, they developed many world-renowned universities like Nalanda, Takshashila, where science was well developed and everything was known to humanity.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
So still from the past, we are only struggling to attain the moral order.
Yes.
Means
Yes, yes.
I think only the is to attain that moral order, and all the religious philosophies are pointing towards that, but they are in between. They are misguiding a lot of things. Blindness they are generating. In Buddha, we can say that eye opening and rational thinking. The space has been given to it.
That's a right comment. I would say that's a right comment. Anything that leads to blind faith, anything that leads to dogma, anything that leads to narrow-mindedness, anything that leads to anti-humanness, I think is not the teaching of the Buddha, definitely. And as you rightly said, that maybe all the religions are striving for creating the moral order in the world, but they, as we have seen in the past discussions, that they attribute it to the God or some external agency. They don't attribute it to the human being to become responsible for the moral order. Because of the ignorance, because of not knowing, because of lack of rationalism, that we are wasting so much of a human life. We are wasting so much of a human resource. We are wasting so many things because of the poverty, because of the caste discrimination, because of the racial discrimination, and so on and so forth.
Yes, in a nutshell, we can say they are violating natural laws.
Yes, they are violating the natural laws. You're right.
They were based on untruth.
Yes. But spirit of inquiry is very important. And I think that's what is Baba Ambedkar is getting at. The Buddha encourages the spirit of inquiry, that we need to inquire into nature of everything. And without the spirit of inquiry, if we kill the spirit of inquiry, we ultimately land up in the domain of what is called the superstition, or what is called the supernatural.
this is the only weapon that we human, every human should equip with.
Yeah, in that line only, I would request to Mangesh sir to recall that Alaram Kala Sutta, where Buddha established the charter of free inquiry. So, can you explain a little bit more? in that?
Yes, Subhash, because you are yourself a scientist, you can explain it better. And we are going to look at it in the future sort of readings. But in a nutshell, that sutra is all about the Kalama Sutta. The Buddha has given that teaching in the marketplace. So Buddha was in the marketplace. There were all businessmen. There was a hurry-burry in that place. And once the market was closed, the people came near to the Buddha, and Buddha gave them this very profound sort of a teaching called the teaching of the Kalamas. The Kalamas were also very brilliant people. They were always inquiring, and they were suspicious about what to accept and what not to accept, because a lot of teachers were coming to their towns, a lot of philosophers. Just today, so many Babas are moving around, so many saints are moving around, so many people, so many religions, a jungle of views, and they were confused as to what to accept as truth and what to accept as not truth. And the Buddha gave them a few tests. He said that, don't believe something because it's coming from the tradition. Don't believe something because it's coming from the religious books. Don't believe something because somebody who is popular saying that. Don't believe something because it's written in Tripitaka also. Don't believe anything just like that. You test it only when you know that this is beneficial to you and the others. Only then you take it as the truth, whether it's beneficial to you and others. And there is a lot of this very beautiful discussion going on, which we are going to see in the Buddha is Dhamma, which is included in the Buddhism in the future. But that completely shows that what Dr. Subhash has been referring to about in terms of the charter of free inquiry, charter of free mind, because the Buddha was somebody who encouraged people to think freely. He didn't put any premium on, staying foolish. He said that people should be free to think. People should have the spirit of inquiry. People should inquire into it. And people should have rationalism. If you bring these three things together, one, rationalism, second, the truth seeking, and the third, the spirit of inquiry, you get all the beautiful elements together in terms of, to know something, to understand something. So I think there is everything in Buddhism in terms of freeing our mind from all these encumbrances of the past, from these religious dogmas, from this, the operation of the religions and the gods and whatnot, media, so on and so forth. So, but for that, in order to do that, our mind should be very powerful. Our mind should be very, very well cultivated in order to do that, because it's not easy to become a truth seeker. It's not easy to cultivate the spirit of free inquiry. It's not easy to cultivate the path of rationalism. So our minds have to be cultivated on that level.
Yeah, great. Thank you so
Subhash
much for explaining comprehensively. Yeah, and Buddha's teaching is very much in consistence. What he's telling, saying first sentence, second sentence, then followed by others. So there is a consistency. There is no contradiction at all. Whatever now we are teaching under the heading of believing the supernatural is not Dhamma and charter of free inquiry. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. Anything else? Any comments by anybody? Or any reflection? Anybody would like to share anything? Because I think we can neatly wind up our class in 40-45 minutes, because this section, as I told you, I'm going to take one chapter every reading session. And, no, even if it's a short one, we are going to, just give one class, one chapter. So anybody has anything to say?
Yeah, I am having one doubt.
Yes, dear.
Yesterday I was attending one lecture on Triratna Buddha Mahasangha.
Okay.
Those Dhammacharis are there. They call themselves as Dhammacharis.
Okay.
One of the Dhammachari is from Amravati, and now he is settled in Chhattisgarh district. So he was preaching there. And somebody asked them question on this rebirth. This question is coming again and again. So that Brahmachari said that that when body dies, all these elements which are there in the body, they merge with the 4 different elements like earth, water, gas, and everything like that. And the mind which is there, it goes and settles in some central pool called Chetana, store of Chetana. And when the new body takes birth, from there that Chetana comes and then merges with the new body. Like that he was saying. And all these Triratna Bauddha Mahasangha people, so-called Dhammacharis, they are preaching this thing only. So I objected. I said that this is not written in Buddha and his Dhamma. So what you are teaching is a wrong thing. So to that they do not agree. So I don't understand now how, in what way we should explain to them. This is a wrong. Against means what they teach is something like a Hinduism only. Because in Hinduism that concept of soul and everything, so this is parallel to that concept.
Okay.
So I strongly objected it, and but this is not giving any fruitful result.
Yeah, I think my take on this will be this, that the center and the core teaching of the Buddha is anatta. And if we understand the core teaching of the Buddha as anatta, then from it follows a very beautiful sort of a discourse that the Buddha gave about, he says, na etang mama, na eso aham asmi, na meso attati. If we understand these 3 words, these 3 phrases, we understand everything, because ne eso mama. So what we do, always we are trying to claim everything, that this is me, I. Okay, eso mama. So Buddha says, na eso mama. Okay. And there is no mind. There is no aham, there is no mamang, and there is no man. These 3 words we have to understand very clearly in Buddhism. So for example, we always have this linguistic shorthand for what we always refer to ourselves as I, me. And in Buddhism, it's called ahankara, the continuous creation of the idea of I. And then mine, mamamkara, and then mananusaya, which means when we do it constantly over many years, we have this very solid sort of feeling that I exist. And the Buddha smashed on this, and Buddha understood that there is no self, anatta. And I think this is the core teaching of the Buddha, because there is no self. What is going to be born and what is going to be die? That is the fundamental question we have to understand. And that's why the Buddha says that because there is no self, that's something which doesn't exist, why should we crave for it? Why should we cherish it? And once we understand that there exists no atta, then our all fears are gone. We are not troubled anymore. So it's a very simple sort of a teaching of the Buddha. So all these speculations about rebirth, all these speculations about what happens after death, what happens after these, what after that, they are in the realm of speculation, according to the historical Buddha. So, and the Buddha gave a similar teaching to Rahula, where he says that, when your mind is free, when you know that you don't treat somebody as lower than you, or equal to you, or higher than you. It's very deep sort of a Buddha's teaching there. So I think, because people do not have, a lot of things are not explained. There are of course books on what happens at the time of the death in terms of the physical processes and so on and so forth. There are a lot of scientific books to explain the process of death, and what happens after the death is not a question for a Buddhist, because the Buddhists through their experience understand that there is no self. So what is going to be born? So this birth here and birth there is of no consequences for a person who understands that everything, there is anatta. And I think that's a core teaching of the Buddha, very, very much core teaching of the Buddha. It cannot be denied. Then what is the world all about? So anatta directly leads to what is called the paticca samutpad, that dependent origination, that certain things arise depending on certain causes and conditions. When those causes and conditions disappear, those things, those entities disappear. And it's also in the realm of our mind also. The mind, how the way we perceive is also dependent on certain things. And ultimately Buddha says, when we talk about this same sutta, Buddha says that even we have to let go mind. We cannot be even attached to the consciousness, because sometimes we have a feeling that the consciousness is I, and I is consciousness, or I is inside the consciousness, or consciousness is inside I. But such is not the case. The mind, there is no self. In the self there is no consciousness, because this is all Brahmanical sort of a philosophy. So I don't know what he wanted to communicate, but as based on the politics, the Buddha is very clear. The historical Buddha is very clear about all these things. And if we understand anatta, that's the key to understand the total Buddhism, because other religions have also talked about impermanence and so on and so forth. But only Buddha talks about this great profound discovery of the Buddha, that the self that we cherish, the atta that we cherish, there is nothing like that. However hard we try to locate it, find it, there is nothing like that. So I think, I don't know whether that person is right or wrong. I think we have to always go back to the teachings of the Buddha, understand it, practice it.
Being is becoming, nothing right?
Yes.
Being is becoming.
Yeah. And this most of the self that we talk about, it becomes ultimately a linguistic game, nama. I am this, I am that. But in the ultimate reality, who we are, what we are, even the question who we are is wrong. The question is what we are. And that's what the Baba Ambedkar explained, is what is rebirth of what? So there is, of course,
rebirth of whom?
There is not the rebirth of self. There is no transmigration in Buddhism. It is not possible to transmigrate.
Yeah, that is quite true. But I don't know why these Triratna Bauddha Mahasangha people, they are spreading this. Even those who are in the England now, there was one Subhuti also. He has conducted a lecture series, some 7-8 lecture series, and I attended that. So that fellow is from England. So he is also expressing the same thing.
Right.
And
So
Dr. Tagde sir is also saying same thing. He always says
and even Tagde also, he was to some extent he was saying something, and to that I objected last time to him.
Yeah, I was there, and then I added you.
Yeah, Alka madam was also there. She has also attended. Sometimes they send the link, so I attend. I just attend to know what is their opinion about all such
Anyway,
things.
I think that's there are a lot of.
I think somewhere they need to be means taught what is exactly the Buddhism.
Maybe so. I think what we do, our focus here is on understanding
In the name of Buddhism. I think they are teaching Hinduism indirectly.
Punarjanma.
They are saying Punarjanma means it is something like that. That consciousness, subconsciousness, they go and store somewhere, and at the time of birth it comes there and lands in the new body. Something like that. That is.
I think let you can have a conversation with them, but my take on this will be that focus on studying the Buddha.
If you get some time this chance, then you can just advise them. Even Subhuti said,
I think we do our stuff. I think we do our stuff because it is very important that we do our stuff and create more and more people who will be grounded in Buddhism. I think that should be our goal. And of course, we can be in a dialogue with other people. But I think our goal right now is to stay focused on understanding Buddhism, and we will keep on doing it. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other things? If not, then we will end our class today here. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Jai Bhim to everyone.